One of the most favorite websites, I think, in the world is yahoo.com. And so it made the front page of the Wall Street Journal on November 7, 2007, which was yesterday. And it shows Mr. Jerry Yang, who is the CEO and co-founder of Yahoo. His picture is there. And this, I want to comment on this a little bit because it is associated with ethical behavior, especially in the international environment. And there's some huge conflicts between what we perceive as ethical behavior, at least in the U.S. and Canada, at least in the Western world, compared to some other countries. In the case of China, and this is Yahoo's China operation, which was called Yahoo China, and they had a controlling interest in it. They founded it in China, and now they have no financial interest in it at all. The Chinese government approached Yahoo and asked for information on two people. At least one, if not both, were reporters, newspaper reporters. And that is about 2 years ago, and they submitted or accepted the request from the Chinese government because under Chinese law, it is a request you cannot deny. And under Chinese law and Chinese culture now, there is much less interest in acting in any so-called larger ethical way than there is in suppressing any type of criticism of the national government. And these two guys were quite outspoken. They wanted the government to move in a different direction. The information had to do with stuff that these two people had circulated through Yahoo, through chat rooms, through, I guess you do postings, emails, all kinds of stuff that you can do with Yahoo. I'm just not that familiar with it. So Yahoo gave the information to the Chinese government. They promptly arrested these two guys and convicted them, with or without a trial, to 10 years in prison. And they were, I don't remember the ages. They weren't old people. They were the oldest was in his or her 30s. It resulted in a congressional hearing, and I think it was earlier this week based on this stuff. But while technologically, and I'm quoting, while technologically and financially you are giants, speaking to Mr. Yang and another man, morally you are pygmies. Representative Tom Lantos, Democrat of California, who called the hearing on Capitol Hill and told Yahoo's co-founder and chief executive Jerry Yang and general counsel Michael Callahan, quote, "This testimony has been an appallingly disappointing performance." They were harshly critical on the record, congressional record, with Yahoo. Now, this grilling highlights the bind that internet companies face when they venture overseas, privacy experts say. In China, privacy takes a back seat to laws governing criticism of the government. And while Yahoo and rivals like Google try to comply with China's local laws, that ultimately backfired on them domestically. Now, dramatically, during the hearing, the photograph is here. The mother of one of the men arrested sat directly behind Mr. Yang in the front row. And here she's shown crying because of the testimony and what she knows has happened to her son. Tough stuff. It's when the international things that we do, and those of us who travel internationally, at least I feel I'm sensitive to local custom and the kinds of things that you run into, but enormous value differences from country to country. And you could testify about Spain and the differences that we see all over the world. So on that happy note, I'm going to sit down, Matt. Let's take a look at something perhaps a bit more fun. I gave you that information just to disturb your lunch. And it's a little bit of a warning about some of the stuff that's going on. This is the opening episode of Chapter 9, and page 193. And Chapter 9 brings us to a close on various aspects of motivation. We started out with looking at needs in Chapter 7. We looked at the hierarchy of needs from Abraham Maslow, went back in time to the needs from other sources. We then went to especially, four items: expectancy theory, equity theory, goal setting, and behavior modification, all of which I would like you to grasp rather completely. And they are all important aspects of motivation. Those theories primarily emphasize the role of extrinsic rewards in human motivation. Expectancy theory accommodates intrinsic rewards, but they primarily are working with the extrinsic stuff like pay increases, promotions, praise, anything that an individual values to which they will respond positively, and anything the person does not value to which they will respond by withdrawing their behavior, such as punishment. Now we come to the role of job design and the design of our various jobs, and how the design of the job itself can produce intrinsic motivation, that is, a drive from inside the person. All the other stuff we looked at, especially when we deal with extrinsic rewards, is a pull form of motivation. You're holding literally the carrot out in front of the rabbit, or the greyhounds that race at a track have the little mechanical rabbit going around, and that's the reward that they want, but they never catch it, of course. In this opening episode, which I had great fun writing, I contrast the jobs of two people. And I want you to pick the one that you would prefer to do, and some reasons. Now, part of this may strike you as really silly, and I don't care. I think that these are real jobs. These are real people doing real stuff. It's not anything I made up. So, Michael Larson manages Bill Gates' personal fortune and the financial assets of the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. It is billions. Big stuff. The latter is the largest foundation in the world when measured by assets. Larson's job involves buying and selling investments to keep the portfolio growing, even as the foundation pays out more than 5% of its assets per year at the time of the publication. I think it has changed. They pay out even more. His total job performance receives high ratings, usually exceeding the performance of the S&P 500. So, context, you're working for Bill and Melinda. All right? These are fairly prominent people, and pretty much the name Gates is well known. He did reside in Albuquerque for a while, as you may know, where he did the first work with the DOS operating system when he was in his early 20s. Now we come to Mike Hayward. And I think this job is a little bit different. Mike Hayward fell in love with elephants while earning his college diploma in animal care. College visits to a wildlife park and its various animal departments created his commitment to elephants. Now, think about it. What Mike Hayward gets to say is, I am committed to elephants. What Michael Larson gets to say is, I am committed to the Gates Foundation. I think that's a fair assessment. He is one of 250 people who live on the Ringling Brothers circus train. His job as an elephant pedicurist. Think about it, please. Elephant pedicurist. Have you ever looked at an elephant's foot? Those are big toenails. I have a little file-like thing in my desk just to keep my nails nice and smooth, and I don't think it would work too well on an elephant. Requires trimming, shaping, and filing the toenails of the circus's 12 elephants. He is also a presenter and trainer. He spends 14 to 16 hours a day with the elephants, more time, as he notes, than most people spend with their children. And as I recall, he's single and unattached. And he's traveling in the circus train. There's 12 elephants. They all know who he is. Which of these jobs would you prefer? Who said that, please? Are you pulling my leg, or are you serious? Serious. Really serious?
I'd rather be with animals all day than crunching numbers all day. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
So by default, does it mean the rest of you would prefer Mike Larson's job? No? Okay, up here for sure. Maria?
I would like to go work with the elephants. working for the Gates Foundation might be very interesting because I think they're doing good things in that foundation. But that selling of investments, I don't know how to do that. So neither job is attractive to me, actually.
Okay. Now you made a point that I hope I remember. I'm making a note here that ties in with one aspect of how intrinsic motivation from the job design affects us and why it does not affect us at certain times. Kat, what was your...
Well, you didn't mention that the guy who worked for the Gates Foundation had any particular feelings about his job, and you mentioned the elephant guy was committed to and personally, loved with the animals, so...
Okay.
If I had to choose just based on what you told us, I would do the elephant's feet.
Okay. The elephant's feet.
Based on,
12 elephants.
That person just loves and
Okay. What you're pointing out is the a misbalance between the two paragraphs. It was not intentional. I'm glad you spotted it, and I can repair that in the future. Mike Larson loves his job. Yeah, he is, and he's good at it. I think he's a Stanford MBA graduate, so he really knows how to handle this financial stuff, and it also has big publicity. So he's not talked about as much, of course, as the Gates, but the foundation is in the news and so on. Well, in the case, in both jobs, in the last paragraph I note, both jobs induce high performance or high passion, and I think high performance in the case of Larson as well. I mean, he has to work with the elephants. He's performing with the elephants. They have to look great, and there's just a whole batch of stuff that goes together. So we want to find out why this would be true in the case of each of these jobs, and we'll come to that in a moment. But first, take a look at page 194 if you have your book, and I want to give you a little bit of the history of certain aspects of job design and intrinsic rewards. And I'm going to assume you know the meaning of the words that I'm using, like intrinsic rewards. I'm not going to define them each time I use them. If we go back to the previous century, not the 20th, but the 19th century, the 1800s, toward the end of the 1800s, which was about the time that Frederick Taylor was in his prime and working with companies, companies discovered that simplified tasks led to a fairly high level of boredom on the part of people, and the boredom also was then connected to high turnover if those individuals had a choice about leaving their job. I think I told you about my job in my final 3 months in the Air Force when I was key punching the digits 0 through 9 in manila cards. Did I not give that example some time back? Yeah. Now, if you know anything about a key punch machine, you only use your right hand for numbers. You don't touch anything else. You don't use the space bar. Everything is automated through a little program card. And so for 8 hours with a 15-minute break, or a potty break if I had to do that, I'm key punching the digits 0 through 9. Now, what do you think happened to us, the three guys, on the midnight to 7 a.m. shift? There were just three of us. And we weren't the only ones in the building, in this massive security service headquarters, but we were the only ones in our part of the building which had a secure lock. And the only way you could get in the room is to punch the entry code. Were we bored? A level of boredom that I have not to this day experienced again, which is No, I did. I did here. I won't go into that. It's not the job I'm doing now, but it was a related task. It was so bad that we would start to sing. We would have contests with each other to see, because you would get your cards and you would fill up a big tray to see, and a tray is 3,000 cards. So we'd see who could get to 3,000 first. Imagine, these are adults, I think. Yeah, I was 21. I guess I was legally declared an adult at that time. We'd also play tricks on each other.